They told me I wasn't part of the real family. My own sister said it out loud in the middle of a crowded luxury hotel lobby while my parents stood by in silence. But I didn't beg for a room. I walked out. Except, walking away lit a fuse none of them saw coming. Because the moment my grandfather found out their entire world, the money, the lifestyle, the image came crashing down. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get into it. Chicago winter creeps under the windowsill, but my apartment stays warm, a one-bedroom with a lake view that looks expensive and isn't if you plan ahead. I do. I'm Madeline Grace Walker. Maddie, 29, single, a biomedical researcher in Chicago who lives on lab notes and budgets and brings home about 85 grand a year. Not flashy. That's the point. Every November, I pack the same Navy suitcase for the same Florida trip. Thanksgiving at a luxury resort in Palm Beach, marble floors, chandeliers, palms over the ocean paid for by my grandfather, Richard Walker. He's a retired construction magnate who can glance at a building and tell you who cheaped out on the rebar. He's why the tradition exists, and the main reason I still show up. I smooth a blouse on my bed and pause. The ritual is automatic roll-fold-tuck, but my mind drifts to the people waiting in that sun-drenched lobby. My parents, George and Margaret, will arrive early in new resort clothes. They'll hug me politely, ask when I'm finally settling down, then pivot to my sister Catherine Cat as if they invented her. They'll glow about her daughter's school and treat my job like a phase I'll outgrow. Cat is 32, a stay-at-home mom with perfect lipstick and a closet full of designer labels. Her husband's income wouldn't cover the handbags, let alone tuition and SUVs, but Instagram doesn't care about math. On her feed, life is a loop of recitals, influencer lunches, and spontaneous getaways. The captions preach gratitude and God's timing interesting, since the timing that matters is Grandpa's monthly transfer. The numbers are simple: my parents' retirement, Kat's mortgage and car notes. Amelia's private school funded by the same man who taught me never to need funding. He opened my first index fund when I turned 18. Stand on your own feet, he'd say, tapping his cane. Everything fancy can be taken. What you know can't. I believed him. Still do. My parents believed in Kat. They always have. When we were kids, they called her our little star and called me responsible, which is parent code for the one we don't worry about. In college, I juggled scholarships and jobs. Kat studied abroad in Florence and sent photos captioned, "Wish you were here." Translation: Isn't it great that I am? When the bills arrived, they drifted to my parents, then to Grandpa, while I learned to stretch a dollar and how to say no. It stings. I feel like furniture at my own family's party, useful, invisible. They admire my independence the way you admire a trick dog. Look how she takes care of herself. Cue applause, then pivot back to the star. Still there's Amelia. 7, gap-toothed a brain like Velcro. Every Thanksgiving, she barrels into the resort lobby and launches at me. She calls me Aunt Mads and asks whether slime counts as a polymer. When I want to skip the trip, she's the voice in my head. And there's Grandpa, who sits on the terrace with iced tea and watches the ocean like it owes him rent. I show up for them. For the two honest things in a family that likes to pretend. I zip my toiletries pouch and set it beside the suitcase. The apartment hums, radiator ticking, fridge coughing sirens stitched into the night. I like this life because it fits. The lab is honest. Data doesn't care how you look. If I fail, that's on me. If I win, same. My phone buzzes. Kat's posted another story: airport outfits, hers and Amelia's filtered warm. Caption: traditions are everything. So grateful for family time, Cartier flashes on her wrist. I know the bracelet. I know the price. I know she didn't buy it. Comments flood in. I stare too long, then flip the phone face down. A text from Mom. See you tomorrow, dear. Don't forget something nice for dinner. Dad. Maybe bring one of those work stories. Keep it simple this time, haha. I can hear the gentle mockery from 1,000 miles away. In our family, my wins arrive under asterisks. I pull my passport even though I don't need it for Florida. Habit. Control what you can. The suitcase feels heavier than it should, and I know it's not the clothes. It's the old ache being in the room and still outside it. I've made peace with not being their favorite. I haven't made peace with pretending it doesn't matter. On the dresser, a small velvet box waits the gift I chose for Amelia, a pearl hair clip shaped like a crescent moon. Inexpensive, simple, elegant. She'll love it because it sparkles. I love it because it doesn't announce itself. I tuck it into a side pocket and picture her clipping it in. I picture Grandpa grinning. That's the reel I watch when I mute the noise. I slide into boots and a coat, then sit back on the bed. This trip should be automatic muscle memory, but something in me refuses to go on autopilot. Call it intuition. Call it a hairline crack I've ignored. Call it the truth getting loud. I don't know what to call it, only that it's here buzzing in my chest like a wire. I stand, grip the suitcase handle, and open the door to the hallway's cold breath. Chicago air greets me with its usual honesty. I glance at the plant in the window, the bowed bookshelf, the photo of Grandpa and me in hard hats, laughing. My phone lights with a notification I don't check. I lock the door and roll toward the elevator wheels, whispering over tile. Somewhere south, a lobby is polishing its reflection. I'm headed there. I always am. And yet, as the doors slide shut, a thought lands with the weight of certainty, steady and cold. This year will not go the way they think. It won't go the way I think either. The air in Palm Beach feels manufactured sunshine with no bite salt softened by wealth. My cab rolled past gated mansions and private golf courses before pulling up to the Breakers, a resort that looks less like a hotel and more like a palace determined to remind you that you don't belong. Italian Renaissance arches tower overhead, stone walls carved with ornate reliefs. Palm trees sway in rhythm with the Atlantic breeze, and a row of luxury cars idles at the entrance, each one shinier than the last. The valet boys look younger than my students from the lab tours, but they glide with the confidence of men twice their age. They've seen it all, money, diamonds, egos bigger than the cars themselves. Dragging my navy suitcase over the brick drive, I tried not to think about how small it looked next to the matching Louis Vuitton sets tumbling from SUVs. The glass doors swung open and cool air kissed my skin. Inside the lobby gleamed. Marble floors stretched so wide they seemed to echo back your every doubt. Chandeliers glittered above dripping light like crystal rain. Guests strolled by in linen suits and dresses pressed flatter than my bank account. I rehearsed my plan in my head, walked to the front desk, confirmed the reservation smile through the family greetings. Fake normal. Maybe later on the terrace I'd breathe again. The receptionist, a woman with red lipstick precise as a ruler, smiled when I handed over my ID. She typed eyes, scanning the screen, then hesitated. Fingers tapped harder. Her polite expression thinned. "I'm sorry, Miss Walker," she said, voice softening with each word. "I'm not finding a reservation for you." I blinked. There should be. My family booked. We're here every year. She checked again, clicking scrolling as though the room might appear if she looked hard enough. I see reservations for George and Margaret Walker, and Catherine Bennett, her husband and daughter. But nothing under Madeline Walker. Heat bloomed under my collarbone, but my face stayed still. "Could you check again?" She did, though we both knew it wouldn't help. My name wasn't in the system. My family had come here without me. A sharp sound, heels on marble, cut through the hum of the lobby. I didn't need to look up, but I did. Kat. Designer sunglasses pushed to the crown of her head, hair glossy enough to advertise itself, and on her arm, a Hermes Birkin bag that cost more than my car. Her smile wasn't a greeting. It was victory. "Oh, Maddie finally made it," she said, voice pitched high, sweet enough to rot teeth. She stepped closer, letting her watch catch the light. Cartier, of course. Her suitcase rolled behind her monogrammed leather, standing like a soldier next to my scuffed navy case. The receptionist tried to explain, but Kat cut her off, her voice just a little louder, timed for maximum audience. "How strange," she drawled, drawing out the vowels. No reservation for Maddie. People in the lobby slowed. Heads turned. I saw curiosity flash across faces. My humiliation became their entertainment. Kat thrived on it. She leaned against the desk, tilting her head. Actually, she said, her tone syrupy. I only made reservations for our family. Her eyes raked over me. You know the real family. A room for me, my husband Amelia. One for Mom and Dad. That's all we needed. Her words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. The receptionist faltered, looking between us. I felt the ground tilt just slightly, but I anchored myself. My parents were across the lobby near a sitting area. I hadn't seen them until then. Dad stared down at his phone, scrolling like he hadn't heard. Mom adjusted her new resort dress gaze, fixed on the window. Neither moved. Neither spoke. They were here, and they chose silence. It would have been easier if they'd shouted, easier if they'd defended Kat. Silence is sharper. It slices you clean. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Amelia's face flashed in my mind, her gap-toothed smile, her excitement when I promised we'd build sandcastles, and Grandpa, who still believed we were one family intact. My throat tightened, but the air cleared. I steadied. My hands didn't shake when I gripped the suitcase handle. I heard my voice before I felt it calm, measured. I see. Kat's smile widened, thinking she'd won. She didn't notice the steadiness in me, the calm that wasn't surrender. I nodded once to the receptionist, who looked torn between apology and pity. Then I'll leave, I said, voice even. No theatrics, no tears, just fact. The silence in the lobby deepened. I could feel eyes on me, strangers, gauging whether I'd break. I didn't. I pulled my suitcase handle upright and tapped my phone, summoning a taxi. Kat's brows flicked upward, her smirk faltering for half a heartbeat. Wait, she said, too quick. But I was already walking, suitcase wheels bumping over marble. Behind me, the chandeliers still glittered, the lobby still hummed. My parents didn't look up. Kat's heels clicked once, then stopped. I didn't turn back. The front desk staff's gaze followed me like a shadow of sympathy I refused to wear. The glass doors parted. Florida sunlight poured over me, blinding and warm. Outside, palm trees swayed like spectators. The air smelled of salt and money. I stepped forward into its suitcase, trailing each click of the wheels a small declaration. Behind me in that gilded lobby, my family's silence had said everything. And in front of me stretched the unknown, uncertain, terrifying, but mine. I ignored the buzz of my phone in my pocket. I ignored the pull of memory, the ache of betrayal. The valet called a cab. I stood on the curb, face tilted toward the sun, my suitcase by my side, my family behind glass. Kat's smirk still hovered in my mind, but it no longer burned. It sharpened me instead. I would not play the part they wrote for me. The cab turned the corner and I lifted my hand. Outside the glass doors of the breakers, the world looked like a postcard. Palm trees leaned over the drive, their fronds hissing in the ocean breeze. Sunlight bounced off the hoods of cars lined up for valet, glinting like coins at the bottom of a fountain. Families in pastel resort wear shuffled inside with matching luggage and laughter that felt imported. I sat on a stone bench beneath a palm suitcase at my feet, skin prickling with the aftershock of humiliation. The betrayal pressed down in waves. First came the burn humiliation, sharp and acidic. Kat's smirk replayed in my mind like a gif I couldn't close. Her voice, the real family. The front desk's awkward pity. My parents turned backs. My cheeks flushed even though no one was watching anymore. Then came anger, slower but heavier. Anger at Kat for staging the performance. At my parents for their cowardly silence. At myself for being surprised. It wasn't new. It was just louder this time. And then beneath it all, something strange. Relief. The tension I'd carried since I packed my suitcase, the worry about which cutting remark would come first, how I'd plaster on a smile for the group photos, it all vanished. It was over before it even began. They had made the choice for me. And maybe, just maybe, that was freedom. The palm fronds rattled above me, a soft percussion for the storm in my chest. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found his name, Richard Walker. Grandpa. My thumb hovered. For a second, I considered swallowing the whole thing, flying home, pretending it never happened, protecting him from disappointment. He loved Kat. He loved my parents. Maybe he didn't need to know. But love without truth is just theater. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then. Helen. His voice always started with that mix-up. Helen, my grandmother, gone before I was born. He always corrected himself quickly, but the slip carried warmth. He thought of her when he thought of me. It's Maddie, I said, keeping my voice level. I wanted to sound calm even though my insides were splintering. I need to tell you something. His voice sharpened with concern. What happened, I told him. The front desk. The missing reservation. Kat's words drawn out for the crowd, the real family. Mom and Dad standing just far enough away to prove whose side they were on. I recited it like a lab report, stripping out adjectives, keeping to facts. But my throat tightened on the last part. So I left. Silence on the other end. I pictured him on the terrace in his Florida condo, ice clinking in his tea, the Atlantic behind him. His breathing shifted heavier. Not shaky, controlled. Contained. But I knew that sound. It was the storm gathering. I understand, he said finally, voice low, deliberate. I'll take care of this. A statement, not a promise. The kind of voice that had once negotiated million-dollar deals and told entire construction crews to start over when they cut corners. Even now, retired and gray, that voice carried weight. My chest loosened just hearing it. Grandpa, I started, but he cut me off gently. You did the right thing walking out. I'll handle the rest. The line clicked. He didn't need more words. I sat there a moment longer, palm shadows striping my legs, phone warm in my hand. Relief crept in again, but different this time. He knew. And that meant I wasn't alone. The cab pulled up. I loaded my suitcase into the trunk and slid into the back seat. As we pulled away, I glanced once through the glass doors of the lobby. Kat was standing there, phone in hand, watching. Our eyes met for half a second. Her smirk was still there, but thinner, like she didn't quite know why I wasn't begging. By the time we reached the airport, I'd already booked the next flight back to Chicago. Holiday airfares were brutal, but the number didn't bother me. Money lost is nothing compared to dignity regained. I checked in, breezed through security, found my gate. The terminal buzzed with families lugging pies in insulated bags, kids tugging stuffed animals, businessmen scrolling emails. Ordinary chaos. I blended in. When the boarding call came, I found my seat by the window and tucked my suitcase in the overhead. The seat beside me stayed empty. I exhaled for the first time all day. The engines roared to life. The plane rolled back from the gate, nose turning toward the runway. My phone buzzed in my hand. One call, then another, then a flood. Kat, Mom, Dad. Names flashing in relentless sequence. Voicemails piling. Texts lighting up the screen. My thumb hovered for a second. I could answer. I could give them my voice, my ear, my forgiveness. I could let them spin their excuses and paint me selfish for walking away. Instead, I clicked the button silencing the phone. The buzzes continued, muffled and frantic, but I slid it into my bag. The plane turned, engines surging. Outside, palm trees blurred. Inside, the seatbelt light glowed steady and calm. As the wheels left the ground, I pressed my forehead to the window. Florida shrank below the resort, reduced to a speck of glass against the coast. My phone vibrated against my thigh like a trapped insect. I ignored it. Let them call, let them explain, let them beg. I was already gone. Chicago welcomed me back with cold wind and the familiar bite of home. By the time I reached my apartment, snow threatened on the horizon, gray clouds rolling low over the skyline. I slid my suitcase into its corner, turned on the kettle, and pulled out my laptop. The inbox pinged before the water even boiled. The subject lines stacked like a firing squad. From Kat, you're being dramatic. We can fix this if you just talk to Grandpa. From Mom, selfish Maddie. Do you realize how embarrassing this is for all of us? From Dad. You've always had a chip on your shoulder. Can't you think about the family for once? Click. Kat's email glared in bold font. Amelia cried all night for you. She wanted to know why her favorite aunt didn't come to Thanksgiving dinner. Can't you think about a child's feelings for once? She was heartbroken, Maddie. Is that what you wanted? To hurt her? Attached was a blurry photo of Amelia's tear-streaked face, probably snapped mid-cry. The manipulation hit its mark. I winced, my chest tightening, but the timing was transparent. Kat knew which string to pull and she yanked it hard. Another ping. Mom again. You're independent now, aren't you? You earn enough. Why couldn't you just pay for your own room instead of creating this drama? Why humiliate your sister? Dad followed minutes later. Kat has a husband and child. Priorities matter. You could have quietly booked another room and avoided this mess. You're tearing the family apart because of your pride. The emails kept coming, each one sharper, each one twisting the knife. Screenshots of Kat's Instagram drafts captioned #family. First, #Thanksgiving. Blessings now ruined because I had stormed off. Pleas wrapped in accusations, guilt disguised as reason. I stared at the screen, my tea forgotten cooling by the stove. Every word clawed at me, trying to drag me back into the old role, the quiet one, the responsible one, the scapegoat who absorbed blame so the real family could shine. And then it came. A new email landed in the inbox. Not from Kat, not from Mom or Dad, from Richard Walker, subject, to my family. The opening line chilled me before I'd even read the rest. This message is addressed to all of you without exception. I opened it. The words marched across the screen with his voice steady and thunderous, the kind of voice that once ordered entire crews to tear down and rebuild when they cut corners. Today, I was made aware of an incident that has disgraced the Walker family name. My granddaughter Madeline was denied a room during our family Thanksgiving trip. This was no accident. It was orchestrated cruelty. To see her humiliated in public, mocked as not real family, while her parents stood silent, is an act that cannot and will not be tolerated. I read each sentence twice, 3 times, my heart thudding. Catherine. George. Margaret. You have built your lives on my support. Without it, there would be no mortgages, no cars, no private school tuition, no retirement plans. Yet you used that privilege to exclude, belittle, and wound the one person in this family who has stood on her own feet. The next line hit like a gavel. Effective immediately, I am freezing all financial assistance to you. No more monthly stipends, no more tuition payments, no more contributions toward mortgages, loans, or retirement. You will live on what you have earned, not what I have given. My breath caught. I scrolled further. Madeline has lived with dignity, without debt, without deception. She has built her life through discipline and independence, the very values I have preached my entire career. She is the only one who has honored the Walker name. That is what real family looks like. The final lines were short, sharp, final. Your vanity and cruelty have consequences. This is not punishment, it is justice. Consider this the end of your illusions. Richard Walker. I sat frozen, screen glowing against the dim Chicago light. Grandpa hadn't just defended me. He had detonated the foundation of their lives. The kettle screamed behind me, finally boiling. I let it whistle until the water evaporated. Then the storm hit. My phone lit up on the counter, buzzing so violently it rattled against the wood. Kat's name flashed first, then Mom, then Dad. Voicemails stacked one on top of another, my screen glowing non-stop. Answer the phone, Maddie, Kat's voice shrieked in the first message. You have to fix this. You know he listens to you. Please call him back before it's too late. Another message, Mom's voice cracking. Do you understand what you've done? Our retirement home deposit is gone. Our insurance, this is serious. You can't let him do this to us. Dad's voice angrier. Don't think you're innocent. This is your fault. You ran away instead of being reasonable. You're just as guilty. Do something. The messages blurred together, a chorus of panic. My phone buzzed, screen flashing, battery draining. I backed away, letting it sing itself hoarse. My laptop still displayed Grandpa's email, each line etched like stone. For the first time in years, I felt the ground under me solid, unshakable. Through the noise, one truth cut clear: their empire of appearances was collapsing. The money had dried up. And this time, I wasn't the one left scrambling. The phone buzzed louder, longer, relentless. It wouldn't stop. And deep down, I knew neither would they. The first cracks appeared on Kat's Instagram. Her feed, once a glossy parade of brunches and designer handbags, went silent after Thanksgiving. A week passed. Then 2. The last post remained frozen in time, a photo of her Hermes bag propped on a marble table captioned, "Dream Lifestyle." So blessed. The comments piled up. "Where are you? Miss your updates." But there were no replies. Meanwhile, my inbox told the real story. "Madeline, you have to talk to him." Mom's email read, "He can't be serious. Your father and I will lose the entire deposit for our retirement home if this continues. $150,000 gone. Do you have any idea what that means for us? Our insurance is already being adjusted. We can't handle this. You're the only one he listens to." Another message from Dad. "This isn't just about money, it's about family stability. You've always been so cold. Can't you swallow your pride just once?" Cold. That was rich considering I was the one left shivering outside the real family circle. Kat's emails were worse, longer, more frantic. "Amelia is devastated. She doesn't understand why you've abandoned her. She was pulled out of private school this week. Do you know how humiliating that was for me? For her. She loved it there. She cried when I told her she's starting public school next month. You're letting Grandpa ruin her life." The manipulation throbbed beneath every word. She weaponized Amelia's tears just like she'd weaponized them at the hotel. But underneath the guilt trip, her panic leaked through. Then came the husband. His email was short, blunt, exhausted. I had no idea. "I've just opened bills Kat hid from me. Credit cards maxed, personal loans. She refinanced the house without telling me. I don't know what to do. If you can talk to your grandfather, maybe he'll reconsider. This is bigger than Kat. Please." That one hurt differently. It wasn't cruel, just broken. A voicemail followed the next night, his voice low and ragged. "They're threatening to repossess the SUV. The mortgage is overdue. Kat cries every night. Amelia keeps asking why she can't see her friends from school. I can't cover it, Maddie. We're drowning. My parents weren't faring better." Another message from Mom came in the middle of the night, time-stamped, 2:43 a.m. "Your father's been pacing for hours. The retirement home says the deposit is non-refundable. We've lost everything. We can't even keep up with the medical bills now. Why are you letting this happen?" And then Dad again. "Be reasonable. You're the one who benefits from this now. Aren't you? He praises you while the rest of us starve. Do you really want that guilt on your hands?" Guilt. That was the chorus. They layered it thick, hoping it would drown me. But guilt only sticks if you believe the lie. I sat at my kitchen table, the city lights glittering through the window, phone buzzing every few minutes. Email notifications stacked on my laptop. I didn't answer. Not one. Instead, I made tea, the steam curling against the window, and reminded myself of Grandpa's words. Stand on your own feet. My family had built their lives on scaffolding he paid for. Now it was gone, and they were tumbling. I could throw them a rope. But what good was a rope if they'd just use it to climb back onto the same unstable tower I thought about Amelia most? Her wide brown eyes when she begged me to braid her hair. Her delight when I showed her how to mix baking soda and vinegar to make volcanoes. She deserved better than to be a pawn in her mother's charade. I ached for her. But enabling Kat wouldn't protect her. It would just keep her trapped in a house of cards. Someday, Amelia would need an example of another way to live. I wanted to be that example, even if it meant letting her cry now. The messages kept coming. Kat's tone flipped from pleading to furious and back again. You've always been jealous. You don't know what it's like to raise a child. Please just talk to him one time. Please. My parents' messages grew sharper. You've destroyed us. We'll never forgive you. This is your fault as much as his. I let the phone buzz itself hoarse on the counter. I let their words rot in my inbox. And I brewed another pot of tea. Because deep down, I knew this was the only way they'd ever see reality. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, the first snow fell in Chicago. I walked home from the lab under streetlights, the flakes drifting down like ashes. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. I ignored it, assuming it was another voicemail from Kat. But when I set it on the counter, the screen lit with a name I hadn't expected. Daniel Bennett. Kat's husband. The call kept ringing. My chest tightened. I let it buzz once, twice, 3 times before swiping. His voice came through shaky, exhausted, stripped bare. Maddie. Please. She's falling apart. We're losing everything. The pounding at my door started just after 9 on a Tuesday night. I'd been curled on the couch with a research paper in one hand and a mug of chamomile in the other, the city muted beyond my window. The knock came again harder, followed by a voice that made my stomach drop. Maddie. Open the door. Kat. I set the mug down, every muscle taut. She pounded again. I know you're in there. For a second I considered staying silent. Let her scream into the hallway, let the neighbors call security. But the sound of her voice, cracked, desperate, dragged me forward. I unlatched the deadbolt and pulled the door open. She stumbled inside before I could say a word. Her hair hung limp, makeup smeared in streaks down her cheeks. Her once perfect coat hung open, revealing a sweatshirt I'd never seen her wear in public. She looked less like the curated woman from Instagram and more like the girl I used to share a bedroom with, angry, raw, cornered. You have to help me, she said, voice shaking. Please, Maddie. Just talk to Grandpa. Convince him. You know he listens to you. You're his favorite. I shut the door slowly. Kat. She cut me off, pacing across my living room like a caged animal. We're drowning. They're going to take the cars. The bank keeps calling about the mortgage. Amelia cries every night. You don't know what it's like watching your daughter beg to go back to her school, her friends. I was just trying to protect my family. She whirled on me, eyes blazing. But you'll never understand. Because you're alone. Her words sliced, but they didn't land the way she thought. Maybe once they would have. Maybe once I would have swallowed that shame and let it define me. But not now. I stood straighter, voice steady. No, Kat. You weren't protecting your family. You were protecting your pride. And don't tell me I don't understand. I understand better than you think. Because I built my life without anyone's money. She blinked as if I'd struck her. I stepped closer, the anger in me calm, controlled, razor sharp. Do you remember what you said at the hotel, the real family? In front of strangers, in front of Amelia, you humiliated me. You thought I'd just take it. But I didn't. And I won't. You did this, Kat. Not me. You. Her lips trembled, but the fire in her eyes refused to dim. You don't get it. Everything I did to hold things together, to make us look good, to give Amelia the life she deserves. No, I said quietly. You gave her an illusion, a house of cards, and now it's falling. That's not on me. That's on you. She stopped pacing. Her breathing hitched ragged. Then her voice hardened sharp with fury. So you won't call him. You won't even try. I shook my head. No, I won't. The silence stretched. Her mascara streaks glistened under the dim lamp, her hands clenching at her sides. For a moment I saw something fragile, fear, shame, but it was buried beneath the rage she wore like armor. Her voice dropped to a hiss. You'll regret this. Then she turned on her heel, yanking the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. The sound reverberated through the apartment as she stormed out, heels striking the hallway like gunfire. The door slammed shut behind her, rattling the frame. I stood in the stillness, my chest tight, my hands trembling not from fear, but from the enormity of what had just happened. Outside, her footsteps faded down the hall. But her final words hung in the air, heavy, venomous, promising a storm not yet spent. "You'll regret this." 3 months slipped by like chapters in a book I'd already decided how to end. Winter broke, spring teased its way into Chicago, and with it came a version of me I hadn't known was waiting. At work, I barely recognized the reflection I cast in the lab's glass doors. They'd promoted me to lead a new project, a recognition that came with a salary bump I hadn't expected so soon. My name appeared in internal memos, not buried in the fine print, but bold credited. I walked into meetings now not as the quiet junior, but as the one colleagues sought out for answers. The respect was quiet, professional, real, the kind that doesn't need to be broadcast in filtered photos. The raise went straight into my investment account. Index funds, steady growth. I sat in on weekend seminars about financial strategy, surrounded by people who lived with discipline instead of performance. We talked about compounding interest, about long-term planning, about peace of mind. Their conversations were clean, free of envy or posturing. It was a world built on substance, not smoke. In the evenings, my social circle thickened in ways I'd neglected before. Friends from work pulled me into trivia nights and cozy dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants. My downstairs neighbor invited me to a community garden project, and I found myself kneeling in soil on weekends, planting kale and laughing with people who measured wealth by shared meals, not handbags. For the first time in years, I wasn't orbiting around my family's gravity. I was rooted in something else, something that felt like belonging. Meanwhile, the storm I'd walked away from continued tearing through what my family once called life. Mom and Dad left their Florida retirement community. The glossy brochures and manicured golf courses had evaporated the moment Grandpa pulled the plug. They sold off what they could and moved into a modest condo inland, far from the water views they'd boasted about. Their emails to me grew quieter, stripped of anger, edged now with resignation. "We never realized how fragile our security was," Mom admitted once. "Luxury is easy to get used to, harder to let go of." Kat's collapse was uglier. Daniel, her husband, discovered more debt than he thought possible: maxed cards, hidden loans, refinances. Their marriage staggered under the weight. I'd hear through snippets, voicemails, secondhand updates that the fights went long into the night. Neighbors heard screaming. Amelia cried herself to sleep. Kat's Instagram remained abandoned, her last post a frozen relic of the lifestyle she once worshipped. Every time I glanced at it, the words, "so blessed," felt like a cruel joke. In the middle of it all, Grandpa's letter arrived. The envelope was thick, his handwriting strong but a little shaky with age. I read it standing by my kitchen window, morning sun spilling across the paper. "Maddie," it began. "I have watched you these past months with pride greater than I can put into words. When others collapsed under the weight of illusions, you stood taller. True brilliance belongs to those who stand on their own feet. You embody that. Never doubt it." The letter went on stories I'd heard from him before about building his company from nothing, about the men who cut corners and the price they paid. But this time they weren't just lessons. They were acknowledgments passed from him to me like a torch. I folded the paper carefully and slipped it into my desk drawer. That same drawer held something else. I pulled it open now, fingers brushing against the small square box. The wrapping paper had dulled a little since November, but the ribbon was still tied neatly. Inside was the pearl hair clip I'd chosen for Amelia, crescent-shaped, simple, elegant. I hadn't given it to her. The night in the lobby had stolen that chance. And since then, the distance between us had widened into something that felt almost permanent. But I couldn't throw it away. I lifted the box into my palm, the weight absurd for something so small. For a moment, I imagined Amelia's face lighting up the way her hands would have reached for it. I imagined her years from now, maybe old enough to understand, maybe ready to see through the lies she'd been raised in, maybe ready to know that love doesn't always look like indulgence. Sometimes it looks like truth. The city outside buzzed with spring energy, new leaves rustling in the breeze, children's laughter echoing from the park below. but in my hand was a reminder that not every story was finished. I set the box back gently, the ribbon glinting faintly in the light. The drawer slid shut, and I knew one day I'd open it again. Spring settled into summer, and with it came a stillness I had never known before. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for my family's approval, or bracing for their criticism, or twisting myself into knots to fit a mold that never wanted me. The silence of their absence was not loneliness, it was peace. I carried no illusions. The rift was real and likely permanent. Mom and Dad would never forgive me for standing still while their retirement plans evaporated. Kat would never forgive me for refusing to rescue her pride. The emails had dwindled from daily to weekly, then faded altogether, leaving behind only an echo of desperation that no longer reached me. But in that quiet, I discovered freedom. The weight of favoritism, the years of standing in Kat's shadow had slipped off my shoulders. What replaced it wasn't revenge or smugness, it was clarity. I didn't need them to see me. I saw myself fully for the first time. And yet, there was Amelia. Always Amelia. In my mind, I still heard her laugh, still saw her little hands tugging at mine, still remembered the way she begged me to braid her hair. I couldn't erase her from my heart even if her mother used her as a weapon. More than anything, I hoped that one day she would grow, and in growing she would see. She would understand that the glitter and glamour her mother clung to were hollow, and that truth sometimes arrives dressed as loss. Maybe someday when she was older, she'd ask why things fell apart. And maybe then she would be ready for the answer that love is not the same as indulgence, that dignity matters more than appearances, that standing alone can sometimes mean standing stronger. The city at night shimmered outside my apartment window. Chicago's skyline glowed against the dark steel and glass crowned in light. Below, cars moved like veins pulsing through the streets, life endless, unstoppable. I stood there barefoot, the cool hardwood under my feet, the drawer beside me slightly open. I lifted the small box into my hands. The wrapping paper was worn now, the ribbon a little frayed, but the gift inside remained untouched. A pearl hair clip waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right understanding. I held it to my chest and whispered into the night. Someday, Amelia, when you know the truth. The words hung in the air soft, certain a promise not of reunion, but of hope. I set the box gently back into the drawer, closing it with care. Then I reached for my phone on the counter. The screen still lit with old voicemails, unread texts, lingering traces of their chaos. With one slow motion, I powered it off. The apartment exhaled into silence, a silence that was no longer empty, but whole. I turned away from the window, the city's glow casting long light across my walls. My steps carried me forward, away from the drawer, away from the phone, away from the weight of what had been, into the light of my self-made life. And in that moment, sorrow and triumph braided together, the grief of what was lost, the power of what I had chosen. I had reclaimed my dignity. I had reclaimed my freedom. And I would never give it back. And with that, Maddie closed the drawer and stepped into the light of her own future, free at last, from the shadows of her family. If you found this story powerful, be sure to subscribe for more. Share your thoughts below. We read every comment, and your perspective matters. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Revenge Served Cold. We'll see you next time.